Today in the Smuggler's Room, yeah, you realize that sometimes you need some accessories. And a belt. That's coming up. What's up, you awesome geeks? I'm Brian, and welcome to the Smuggler's Room. This week, this chubby geek is going to show you how you can create some really excellent accessories for your next cosplay, and we're going to do that by shopping at the local hardware store and the fabric store. We used this technique several years ago when my wife wanted to go as a smuggler for our Star Wars Halloween party, and she wanted a droid collar. This one, not to be too specific. Now, in our very first ever Smuggler's Room episode, we built a droid collar using a vintage flash camera holder. And several of you have asked since then if we could show other ways that this could be done without buying a vintage flash holder. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how we built this out of plumbing parts from Home Depot. Now, in addition to a droid collar, this week we're also going to build a bunch of other small, weird parts and pieces that you can add to your belt to give you a little bit more authenticity for your Star Wars costume. So, let's get started. Now, when I went to the hardware store, I picked up a bunch of different things, and you won't need all of what I grabbed. Mostly I picked up plumbing parts in the 1/2 to 3/4 inch variety. I also found that stuff in the sprinkler section are great and they're cheap. I don't think any single item I bought cost more than $6. Most things were less than $2. Now we're going to go ahead and leave a list in the description below of all the various parts and pieces that I found. But I encourage you to just go to those aisles, pick up a bunch of random stuff, spend $20 or $25, take it all home, and then you can start what we're going to do next, the assembly process. When you do the assembly process, the biggest thing is do not overthink it. This is just putting random parts and pieces together, whether they attach on their own or you add a little bit of glue until you get the right look or the look you're after. So as you can see, I didn't use all that many parts to put together a custom droid collar. I would say with everything I put into it, I have it for less than $12, not including the paint. And as far as paint, I did airbrush mine, but you could do this with rattle can spray paint or whatever other types of paints you feel comfortable using. Add a little bit of rub and buff, weather it, and you're good to go. I also bought a sprinkler head, so let's take it and a few parts and bash that together and see what we come up with. Alright, that one's looking pretty good thus far. We went ahead and add some primer, and while we wait for the primer to dry, let's talk about Harry's razors. No, before you ask, they're not a sponsor. Not yet. Right, Harry's? But they are contributing to a close shave and, more importantly, belt accessories. That's right, the plastic razor blade holders, once done serving their purpose, can make for some great ammo boxes for your belt with just a couple of bits of screws, holes, and maybe some plastic squares to add to the box. Now, the last little prop I wanted to create for this belt was a comlink, which is a pretty standard Star Wars prop seen on a lot of their costumes. So I chose parts and pieces that would get me as close to the look of that prop as I could. Okay, and finally, let's talk about a skill and technique that I am sorely lacking, something that terrifies me. That's sewing. Now, my wife is incredible at this. She can come up with costumes and patterns and designs, whip them together in almost no time flat. So I approached her and said, hey, what do you think about making a belt that we can add some accessories to? Sure, I can do that. We tried to capture as much of the process that Carissa uses when she puts these types of projects together as possible. We decided that a 3-inch thick belt was the way to go, and Carissa found remnants at Joann Fabric that pretty much was close to the color and texture we wanted. This is vinyl, or faux leather if you prefer, and remnants are a great way to go as they are often inexpensive and you really don't need much for this kind of project. This rolling cutter by Fiskars is an invaluable cutting tool for this kind of material. They're ergonomic and specifically made for cutting fabric. Okay, now the buckle is the one thing we didn't purchase. I was a bit tight on time, so I just cut it out on our laser for this project. But you could make this out of wood, you could make it out of styrene, or you could purchase a really great buckle online and make it work for your costume. We just needed something quick, so there you go. To attach all these accessories, we went very simple. Carissa did some ties out of the vinyl material, as well as sewing various attachments that would work with the belt and help these pieces stay in place. Now, when you're ready, fire up the sewing machine, and it's a good idea to run a test strip with your machine settings before you jump onto the final project. That way you can see the stitching and pattern is the way you want it. Then you can make adjustments as you need them. For the most part, the stitching on this belt is decorative, but it's also used to attach the accessories by creating loops to hold the props in place. The color of the thread was also chosen specifically to contrast against the belt material. When putting this whole belt design together, there wasn't a pattern or a template used. We basically decided how thick the belt should be and how many accessories we wanted to attach to it, and the cheapest and easiest way to do this. Now, the one thing that Chris did say is it would have been better to have a little extra backing or maybe a second layer on the belt since the accessories and the props are so heavy. This way you'd have a little bit more substance and structure to your belt. So at the end of the day, we have a pretty sweet set of small props and a great belt to put them on and add to our costume. So we really hope that this gives you some ideas for your next costume project, and the next time someone walks up to you and says, "Where did you get all those sweet props for your belt?" you can say, "I was just building something out of nothing."
Well, that's going on the blooper reel right there. Alright, this time's for real.
Okay.